Not yet. I've got 5:30.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
All right, so the should we do the pledge in these, Rusty, or how do we handle it?
I think we can just go.
Okay. So I just basically say the regular meeting has been
just call the special meeting to order, and then I'll start
Okay.
talking.
okay. All right, the special meeting for February the 9th, 2022 will be called to order.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Council, thank everybody for joining us. Just a reminder, the only thing we can discuss during this meeting is the project, the detention basin project. So anything else we'll have to address offline or at Tuesday's meeting, regular meeting. Okay, so I think everybody, it's safe to say that everyone is frustrated, would be a good term, with both the progress and overall status of the detention basins, especially the South Basin. So we have a change order presented by Chahoy Earth Moving Incorporated to address a new issue that's popped up. And I'm going to be very candid with you. I particularly am not too concerned about the price of the change order or the request. But I think we need to have an honest conversation between the city, or excuse me, the governing body, the design firm, the contractor, and I have some comments from KDOT as well. The current change order before us is about $20,000, which of that would about $4,000 would be the city's responsibility for this particular change order. But I think that we really need to have the discussion on the direction of the project, and if we can't continue to throw money at the project if it's not going to produce the end result that we were promised and that we have told the citizens there's going to be the result. So prior to the project starting, we were told that we're going to build the detention basins to mitigate the potential flooding in downtown. We're going to dig out some material, build the basin, and then at the completion, that Krizik Park, especially the south side, will look the same as it did before. It will just be 4 feet deeper. And as I think we can all see, that we have encountered a wide variety of problem sets. So I'm going to start with Mr. Chahoy, and Gregory, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So my first question for you is, do you feel like that to date you have performed the work to specifications?
To specifications, because there haven't been a whole lot of specs with just digging out dirt. Yes. Given the site conditions and our current working area, I feel like we've done everything that can be asked of a contractor to allow for the progress in construction according to design.
Okay. And in your professional opinion, because I'm going to be honest, I'm not an engineer, and once you get past a shovel, I don't know anything about moving dirt. So when you guys tell me something, I believe it. Do you think that based on what you've seen and the design that we're working off of, are we going to be able to achieve the end result that we expect?
That's kind of a double-edged sword with it. Can I get it down to grade, to plan, how it's supposed to look theoretically? Yes. Are you always going to have water and tracks and ruts in the bottom? Yes.
Okay. So Mr. Hobbywalks or Mr. Beckman, I'll give you the opportunity now to kind of respond to that. And if you think that we need to go in a different direction to get the end result that we're all expecting.
Rusty, if you guys can hear me, I assume I'll
Yeah.
start off and Josh can add if he feels like he needs to. So the question at hand is, can the project be built as detailed in the plans and specifications? In my opinion, the contractor has not made a good faith effort in order to accomplish that feat. There's been rough grading, rough excavation done, and we're talking about the South Basin in particular. And there's still windrows and piles of dirt remaining out there. And yes, we all understand it's got water, it's wet, it's muddy. But at least I haven't not seen much of an attempt to try to finish that project. And I've seen other things done that I feel like at least could potentially work here to get the project done. But I'm not at liberty, or at least I'm not allowed to tell the contractor what to do. I can make suggestions. It's up to the contractor to do what they think is reasonable to get the project done.
But would a redesign effort in some part produce that result?
I'm not sure that a redesign, yes. I mean, there's redesign that could get the result. I'm not sure that that is even necessary.
Okay. Before we go into the specific change order, I'll open it up for the governing body to ask either the contractor or the firm any questions or make any comments.
How much deeper does the south pit got to be before it's done, or does it have to go down anymore?
I can take this is John again. I can take a first crack at that answer. So we did some checks out there this week on the elevation of the floor. And obviously it's still rough out there, so it's not as smooth as glass, but in general, it looks like it's been excavated within about an inch or two of the finished floor elevation. The details of the plan.
Inch or two off. How are you going to get the water out of it? That's my question. And I want to say this. 2 months before it started, we set a pole down there and we told you guys that we hit water at 3 feet. And apparently nobody cared or wanted to even try to figure out why we hit water. And then now we act like it's a surprise there's water in the pit. Nobody's surprised. Everybody knew there was going to be water in the pit. So how are we going to get it out of there?
And as the contractor, I would like to interject a little bit. This is the first that I'm hearing a pole was set and there was water hit. I know the electrical companies said that when they put the pole in, their hole was starting to get wet, but we had no foreknowledge that water was being hit.
And just for your clarification, Gregory, Tyler works for Western Co-op, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was out there today, Tyler, down at the very south end where the opening of the cell is, and the water is running out of there. There is elevation difference from the south end of the detention basin down to the pipes that Shohei has installed. It is draining at that point to the, if you want to call it southwest, towards the pipes. But obviously, if you go out there, there's piles and windrows of dirt in the basin that are holding water that's preventing it from going anywhere. With shaping to attain slopes, that water would drain out. How fast? I certainly can't say that for sure, but it would make its way down to the south end. And that's what I was mentioning before. I have not really seen much of an effort to get that shaping completed. And I just heard the contractor say that he cannot do that.
So Ms. Hanson,
Well, my question is, okay, you're saying that the water is gonna drain, but you don't know how fast. If we get a big rain, 4 or 5 inches, 6 inches of rain, even if he could do what he was supposed to do, how long is that water gonna sit in there?
So by our hydraulic modeling, when we designed the project, that is exactly how the basin works, is that when you get a large quantity of rain and it comes to the pipes, eventually it will become too much for the pipes to handle and the water will back up into the basin. And by the modeling, it would drain out in about 24 hours. Now, obviously, that's the substantial amount of water. You're going to have a little residual left after a rain event, but it's 24
Right.
hours.
So Gregory, do you agree with what Mr. Hobbywox just said as far as that it will eventually drain, or do you think there's always gonna be water in that hole?
For a contractor perspective, anytime you put something on a slope, it'll drain. But from the core report perspective, they specifically laid out in the final paragraph of the core report, and I'm quoting the core report, the area will probably remain wet most of the time. And I have brought that to Todd's attention, Carlton's attention, John and Josh's. We've had that area open since December 10th, roughly. And we still have water in the bottom. So yes, a large amount of material will drain, but will it ever be completely dry? No.
so will it be dry enough to seed?
Based on what we picked up from the meeting with KDOT and the geology team, they said very highly unlikely. Because we've got continually seepage. Now we have a name for it with that Dakota formation. He said there's constant water movement all the time with that formation.
I would also add in that report, at least the way I read it was the water was following the top of the rock ledge. It didn't not necessarily say it was coming up everywhere across the entire basin. When I was out there when it was frozen, the only spot, this was just last week, and trust me, it was cold, it was frozen. The only place I saw water seeping anywhere was in about a maybe 10 to 20 foot wide area clear at the northwest corner of where it's been excavated so far. And I would reiterate again, if every effort had been made to smooth out the bottom of that basin and grade it to drain and it was still wet, then that would be a different conversation in my opinion, but that effort has not even been started yet, let alone done.
And I would push back very, very vehemently on that, John. I don't have enough fingers and toes to count how many times we have pulled our equipment out. I'd have custom chains produced just to be able to pull our equipment out from the bottom. I've brought this point up many, many times. We can all see where my tracks are sinking in. GPS is designed specifically for the tip of the blade. It is not designed to fill in anywhere from 8 to 12 inch track ruts, because a flotation machine cannot float on this material. That's why I was so adamant I have to try to finish as we go. I can't expose the whole thing and then try to go back and finish it, because once it's saturated, it is saturated.
And I completely agree that the current methodology is not working and so another approach is needed. I will concur with you on that, Greg.
And that's where I've reached out for advice. I've reached out for suggestions. September 9th, when I first brought this issue up, Kirk and Michael's response to me was, what is my solution to solve this? Not, here's an idea. You proposed the idea of cutting a trench from the northwest corner or the northeast corner to the southwest corner, which we did. And we still are having the same issues. I mean, based on what I've been given from you guys, which hasn't been a whole lot, I've tried what was recommended. I've offered solutions. I've done more as a contractor with the design on a job on this one than I ever have in the past.
I don't know what that means, but so here's the thing that I've seen before.
Usually,
that is a possible solution I'll just throw out there, and we're here to collaborate. It's the contractor's job to figure out how to get the job done with the equipment he has available, and if he doesn't have it, to find the equipment that'll do it, or somebody else to do it. But similar to what you did when you were first excavating, you were having issues with your dump truck sinking into the mud, and essentially you took the dry dirt off the top of the surface and you built haul routes out there into the basin for your trucks to drive on. I've seen a similar type thing done, and it'd be kind of in the reverse. In this case, it would be a haul route for your excavator to drive out on. And you could use your excavator scoop possibly to smooth out that basin floor and get it cut to a reasonable slope to drain.
Mr. Hoppywalks, is it set in stone where that elevation has to be in order for that to work properly? Is there a way to raise the elevation and still create the same drainage?
You could raise it and create close to the same. I mean, as far as the slope, close to this, it would create the same drainage. It would have a little bit less capacity as far as the amount of water the basin could hold.
So currently, at where we want it designed at, how much could that hold potentially compared to if we did raise it? And I understand you may not be able to answer that right this moment, but like how big of a differential are we looking at?
I might ask Josh if he's more intimately involved in the design, if you even have a rough, if we're talking, say, filling in 12 inches of dirt across, or let's say raising the floor of the basin 12 inches, 1 foot.
Yeah, Aaron, this is Josh. So the basins were designed to handle a 50-year design event. So that's a rain event that's projected to occur once every 50 years. We have volumes for that in acre feet that I could provide. I don't have that handy right now. But essentially, if we were looking at filling the bottom of the south basin, we would still have the storage capacity for the north basin. We're probably looking at, if we put a foot of dirt in the south basin, that may be 20 to 25% of the capacity of just the south basin. So we'd probably still be, at 80 to 90% total capacity, I would guess, which I'm assuming would still handle a 25-year storm, which is kind of typical intervals that we look at are 2, 5, 10, 25, and 50-year design events. So I would guess we would be somewhere between the 25 and the 50-year design as far as storage capacity of the basins.
Okay. And at the design initially, were we hoping to hit a 50-year or?
We started out when we turned in the application, it was turned in as a 100-year design, and that was voted on by the city council early on in the project when we submitted the application. And then based on some changes made on the amount of area that we had available to construct the basins with KDOT's property and right away that they owned, and the church wanting some additional property, our area that we had available to use was cut down. So at that time, it was decided that a 50-year design event would be acceptable. So that's what the design was based on.
But didn't, you know, we get so many emails on this. Didn't KDOT say that there was no, nothing binding us to maintaining the 50-year threshold, that we could go down to the 25 if we needed to?
Yeah, that is correct. Don with local projects had verified with the manager of the Transportation Alternatives Program, which authorizes the funding that the city is using for this project. And they said that it was not a requirement to meet a 50-year design. So we aren't held to that.
So would it be possible if we had to put dirt back in and, you know, to a level that's not at the water table or the source of the water that's continuing to fill the basin?
Yeah, and I would point out, Rusty, with that, you get to the northern half to 3/4 of that south basin, there's maybe an inch of water. You know, if the bottom was smoothed out, and at the very opening, at the south end of the basin, there's about 4 inches of water standing there currently.
Well, I mean, even if there's an inch, can we seed in an inch?
Okay, no, you
Standing water?
can't you can't plant grass seed when there's standing water out there. Your equipment's gonna sink into the mud and it's just not gonna work.
Could we do like a rice paddy field or something? Or maybe some cattails?
The city can do what the city wants to do, but I would caution against building wetlands.
So where are we at on our, what is the max, wasn't the max budget 550,000? As far as the KDOT and the shared part of it?
Yeah, so it's a little bit higher. I'll let either John or Josh go through that. It's in the packet, but there's a lot of numbers in there. I think if I took away, if I'm correct in my takeaway from our meeting today, John, there's about $40,000 more before we hit the cap, and the city is responsible for 100% of the cost. Is that right?
Yeah, Rusty, I can answer that.
Okay.
That is correct. The total project max is $647,450. That includes construction and construction engineering. The city's responsible for 20% of the cost up to that max, and then 100% of any cost over that max. With the change orders that we currently have estimated, we're at approximately $600,000. Including the construction inspection fees, if we were to max those out, would be a little over 600,000. So we would have 40, a little over 40,000 available still before we hit the max.
And that number, Josh, includes, just for argument's sake, includes Chahoy's current change order for the rock excavation. We would still be just over $600,000 if that were totally spent.
That's correct.
But we see how quickly, I mean, we can get $20,000 at a time. So at what point, you know, is the city, are we gonna hit that? And then now we're stuck with the hole. It's not, doesn't look good. I mean, I've had several people complain about how bad it looks and what's going on. And then now the city, we're at 647,000, and now the city's responsible for 100% of everything else that goes down from there.
Well, and that's sort of what our
And-
project. Go ahead, Rusty.
And at current trajectory, I mean, we can hit the max and we're still gonna have conditions where we can't plant grass. So we're gonna be at in the summertime, we'll have a dry dirt patch, and in the rainy season or winter, we're gonna have a huge mud hole at the entrance of our city. On our current trajectory.
I have 3 questions. Is there any guarantee that removing this rock positively is going to solve this problem? The second question, Mr. Hopkewalks, would you agree that using a local engineering firm to some extent, there should be some local knowledge of the issues that we're currently experiencing? And third question, under the contract with the contractor, is there any wording in there where it states that the contractor will remove all material to the point where engineering suggested?
Those are long questions. I'll try to remember all three of them.
Yeah.
The first question was the rock excavation. So the rock, and you said, well, resolve the problem. I think you mean about the water that's standing in the cell that we mean.
Right.
So the rock excavation really has nothing to do with the standing water. It's just as Shohei was excavating to finish the project, he hit a ledge of rock. And so to build the project as it's designed, the rock would have to be removed. That's the only reason for discussing removing rock. The rock does not necessarily have to be removed to finish the project. It would just be a different elevations of what were in the plans. And we'd kind of go back to the same discussion earlier. If the rock is left in place and let's say we covered up with dirt and plant grass over it and there's grass growing there, nobody knows rock's there again, once the grass is established, the only change that would happen is that you would have less capacity in the detention basin. Kind of similar to if you put the foot of dirt on the bottom like we discussed. So the rock doesn't necessarily have to be removed. Shohei's change order is proposed as if the desire is to get the rock removed, build the basin as it's designed, then the rock has to go to build it as designed. And I would also contend, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, if it's decided to go forward with removing the rock, then the contractor has to have a plan in place to finish the floor as designed, or at least in order to make it, to allow it to drain to the south end. Because otherwise, if we can't get that part done, I feel like removing the rocks, I'll try to think of the nice way to put this, kind of a waste of effort. Without finishing the floor in some manner so that water can drain and so it looks nice at least, what's the point of removing the rock? We're still going to have a messy looking bottom floor, which is what we have now. The second part of your question is about using a local engineering firm. When you're digging things below ground, you never know what you're going to run into. That's what I can say there. Case in point, on when we did the 8th Street project, we had the city go out and locate water lines, and there was a water line found that nobody even knew was there and didn't even have water in it. It was an empty cast iron pipe. City didn't know it was there. Contractor didn't know it was there. The locate companies, consultant, nobody knew it was there. Things get buried in the ground. You don't even know it's there. This ledge of rock that we run into on the basins is in a relatively isolated area. It's clear up against the highway. Short of going out and coring the entire place with holes, it would have been probably just pure luck that we would have found that rock there. So in the case of digging underground, you just never know what you're going to find. I've been on projects before where even the local, again, kind of similar, I'm talking about a different town, contractor hit a water line or sewer line and nobody at the city that had been working there 40 years even knew it was there. And those are the people that work on the stuff every day. So when you're going underground, you just don't know what you're going to run into. Third part of your question.
That's something to say though. You were warned a couple months before about water. We weren't, and nothing apparently was said or done. Why? Why was nothing thought about on that when we told you we hit water? And it's a water line's a whole different ball game than what we're talking about now. It's a water line can be moved, repaired. It's done. This whole deal, I think it's a lot different than just finding a 40-year-old pipe in the ground. I mean, I don't get why nobody was told about that, us hitting that water. And no thought was taken like, hey, maybe this is going to be a mud pit. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Tyler, you're asking me, I assume again. My thoughts are I'd like to see an effort to finish the project and see that it drains. So if our current
I've got a
contractor can't,
question.
if our current contractor can't do that, I guess we need to find one that can.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, we go forward with your project, Mr. Hobby Walks, and we do the change order, we get the rock out of there. Contractor takes it down to grade and it doesn't drain. Now what? We've got water. We can't plant seed. Now what? What is the remedy at that point?
Well, here's part of the dilemma. We're in the middle of winter, so things don't dry out nearly as fast as they do in the summer, obviously. As I mentioned, when I was out there today in person, tromping around in the mud, and water is draining from the mouth of the basin to the pipes. So the water is draining away. Now, where it's coming from,
You're going to guarantee it. You're going to guarantee that we finish this water's going to drain away.
what I guarantee is if the floor is built with slope on it, water will drain out of it. I cannot guarantee that it will be completely dry on every inch of that basin. There's no way anybody could guarantee that.
Okay, so if you say that if the current contractor can't complete the project, I'm going to assume that the city now becomes responsible to find a new contractor and responsible for all the amount that's going to cost because it was not through KDOT?
No, that's where performance bonds comes into discussion.
Okay, so can you explain that, Don? Because I don't know what that means.
So a contractor bids on to build a project, and if they cannot do that, they have a performance bond. In this case, it's with KDOT, that a bonding company would find a contractor and pay them to complete the job.
Okay, but so I'm going to ask Greg, do you feel like the job you bid was the job that you're doing?
Absolutely not. And I am going back through an email clear back in September when we first hit this issue where I documented it. KDOT was in on this. Kirkham was in on it. Based on the pre-bid information that we were provided, no contractor, not just us, any contractor you hire in the state is gonna run into these issues.
That's a pretty bold statement to predict what any contractor in the state might think or do.
I'm not saying what they're thinking or doing. I think everybody, based on core reports and the geological finding, whoever did this job was going to find these issues. 100%. That is what I am saying. Based on the information we were provided, this is not the job we bid. And I provided a 3-page long explanation, and I can pull up the exact date of the email. It was emailed to KDOT with Carlton and William on September 21st. That this was not the job we had bid. And according to KDOT spec 104.5A2, this is completely different site conditions than any pre-bid visit or inspection could have found.
Real quick, Ms. Coates has another engagement. I was going to give her a chance if she had any comments before we continue, and she's got to leave.
Well, I think everybody's asking great comments or great questions, and I appreciate the dialogue. But yeah, I do have to leave in probably about 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay.
I would say I've been doing this for well over 20 years, and a classic argument of that's not what I bid on comes up every time a contractor's plan doesn't work out the way they thought it would. That doesn't mean that they just get out of doing the project.
Gregory, would
Can I? Go ahead.
would you be able to continue work if we left the rock in place and
Yes,
didn't
I mean,
execute this change order?
what I know that John's been on me about cost savings to the city, all this, and I can't 100% guarantee it'll work. I'm not an engineer. I'm not this. I just haul dirt for a living. I've been doing it since I was 12 years old. But my idea / remedy, we come to an elevation of the rock. We cut it down 6 inches to a foot if we can, put topsoil and then slope it into the existing basin that's cut to grade. Fatten the slope, which all fattening is, we go from a 3-to-1 to a 4-to-1 or something shallower. I feel you'll get a better final product on that portion than if we would take the rock out. Because once again, I go back to the core report. Now we actually have one. They said the longer that this material is exposed to water, the softer and faster it deteriorates. And
Well, I guess my question is, if we're not worried about losing some capacity, what is the point of us? Is there really any point to us spending this $20,000 and using that money somewhere else to try to address the standing water issue?
Personally, obviously not being a citizen of Ellsworth, but I've gone back to, if this were happening in Atwood, if you don't have to spend the money, I wouldn't. And I brought this up in our meeting, was it 2 weeks ago when we had the Google team meeting with KDOT? If we decide to leave the rock and fatten the slope, I don't expect to be paid for the material that I don't take out. So that cost savings would automatically go back to the city, because I feel like we've been in business for 41 years. We've never been in the business to try to screw anybody. So if I don't take the material out, I don't expect to be paid for it.
Mr.
And
Scrisco,
Yeah, thank you, Greg. I like that last round of comments that you made, that I kind of agree with that direction. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, you're kind of okay with that direction as well, aren't you? I mean, if the city agrees that we're going to lose some capacity.
Yeah, Kirk and Michael has no objection to leaving the rock in place, and as long as everybody's acknowledging that there's going to be some lost capacity. Certainly the basins, as Josh noted, you still have the North Basin and the majority of the South, you're going to see definite benefit from the project.
I think that sounds like a good plan from my standpoint anyway. Let's get it done and get off of this project.
But I guess my question still is, we all feel confident that it's going to drain, but nobody is saying they're confident that we're going to make it look good, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm going to leave that up to the contractor. It's his job to get that part done.
And I would say, as a contractor, in response to John, we have made every good faith effort to finish the area. The spots where we can get it flat and to grade, we've done it. The spots where you can see how saturated and deteriorated the grade is, I personally, with my experience, I don't care if you build a road out to do it with the excavator, you're still going to have windrows and ruts and highs and lows. It's given the site conditions, you're not going to get a completely flat surface with no windrows, no tracking, nothing. It's not feasible.
Thanks, Greg. Greg, do you think with the plan that you kind of put forward that you could at least slick it off enough that we could seed it and mow it?
If we leave the rock in place, and the way that I'm interpreting the geological report, and once again, I'm going to caveat everything. I don't have a degree in geology, not a professional engineer. But if we get it to the top side of that red clay stuff, that's the stuff that we can finish, and it finishes flat. And I think if you put a thicker layer of some heavier topsoil on it, that's the best bet to make it smooth and flat to allow for planting and mowing and whatever the city desires to do 5-10 years down the road.
Oh,
I'm
you're only
satisfied with
talking
that.
about up on the hillside, not in the bottom.
No, and personally, I feel if we try to reverse course and put a foot of material in the bottom, based on site conditions, how they are now, it will in the end look far less appealing than it does now. Because you're essentially putting stuff on mud. And I've built enough highways, you can't build on top of mud and expect a nice finish on anything.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think at this point, that I would recommend that we deny the change order 4 with the rock removal and have Mr. Hobbywox and Mr. Chahoy work through Mr. Chahoy's recommendation on the area for the rock, and that we have allow the staff and the engineer and the contractor to go back to work on finding a solution for the water in the basin.
Yeah, it sounds like we need to have a meeting with KDOT. It's KDOT's project. They ultimately have say-so whether it gets accepted or not. Irregardless of what the city says, they can accept it in whatever condition. So KDOT's got to be involved in that discussion so that everybody's tracking in the same direction.
And Greg, if we,
Quick question.
if they, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Tyler.
Okay, does the state honestly think this is even gonna work? I mean, does anybody really think it's gonna actually drain and be dry, or are we just kind of hoping for the best? I mean, does the state even think it's gonna work?
So Carlton did tell me that he was confident that if the project is constructed to design, that it will work. That was the conversation I had with him.
So Tyler, by design, from the outlet of the basin to the inlet of the pipes that have been installed, there should have been 1 foot of fall. So by design, I mean, water will drain that direction. And currently, the way the pipes are installed, there's about 7/10 of a foot or about half a foot of drop. There is slope from the outlet of the basin to the inlet of the pipes. And as I said earlier, there is water running out of the basin into the pipes currently.
Okay, well, I guess that's good, I guess.
And I think part of the issue is we've had cold weather, so any water that was standing there froze solid, and obviously it can't drain when it's frozen. We've got warmer weather now. Water seems to be moving out of the basin. One thing I was planning to do is go up there and drive a stake in the ground with a mark on it where the water level is now, and we can observe if it's coming down or not.
So Gregory, can you get back to work knowing that we're gonna not do the change order that's proposed, but work through the solution that you proposed?
We can start. The one thing that I did bring up to Josh is if we do something with that floor slope, and he made it sound like it'd be a pretty quick turnaround. I am going to request a new CAD file, since everything else on this project has been to GPS. I would like to continue that to where I'm not trying to freehand a slope in there. And then I'm currently discussing with KDOT also, no matter what, we as a company are going to request additional working time on this job. Just because of site conditions and everything that we're trying to fight through all at one time.
And I did see Carlton's recommendation back to the working days, but I think that may be another discussion for one of our meetings. And but Mr. Mayor, I don't know how you want to proceed now. If the governing body has any additional comments, or the contractor or the engineer. I think that if I'm understanding what everyone has said, we're gonna leave the rock in place. The contractor and Kirk and Michael will work out a plan to work around the rock, and that we will continue to meet with KDOT to discuss a overall solution for the standing water problem.
That's what I'm hearing too. Do we need to make a motion and vote on?
I mean, we can make a motion to deny the change order, just for record. I don't know that we need it. but
Not,
it's-
okay, well,
Yeah.
do we have a motion to not accept the change order and to basically allow KDOT and Kirk and Michael and the Mr. Cahoy to basically find a solution where this South Basin drains as well as geologically and, possible? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to deny the change order.
I'll second.
Mr. Renard makes the motion and Ms. Hanson seconds the motion. Let's go ahead and vote on it. All in favor, say aye.
So,
Aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Brittany, is
Aye.
that sufficient? Brittany, I know we usually do roll call votes when we have Zoom only. It was unanimous, but
Yeah, I don't have a
Alright,
clue
motion
who
to-
said yes or no. I can't tell
All
on
right,
that.
Ms.
everyone,
Ms.
yeah.
Hanson,
So
okay.
Aye.
Mr. Renard,
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Scritchfield,
Aye.
Ms. Coates,
she's already dropped off.
uh,
Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Johnson.
aye.
All right, the ayes have it. Motion carries. We will deny the change order for moving the rock, and we'll let the contractor, Kirk and Michael. All right, we'll go ahead and end the.
All right, so
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, we would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Ms. Hanson makes a motion to adjourn, and was it Mr. Scritchfield?
Yes.
Seconds the motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 We'll do a roll call.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry,
We
Ms.
got it.
Hanson,
We got it,
you got
Mr.
it?
Aye.
Mayor.
All right. Okay, Mr. Scritchfield,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Renard,
Aye.
motion carries. This meeting has been adjourned.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone.
everybody. Really appreciate it. All right, bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, John.